So, hey everybody, to get started, so everyone else has their two pieces to it in their talk. So unless you've read all the bio on mine, you don't know that I'm doing magic tricks too. So we're gonna open up with something. We're gonna talk about the $1 bill and how this is your Active Directory. So your Active Directory is clean and crisp, perfect, right? There's no deviations to it, or maybe it looks a little bit more like this. Maybe, you know, you've got a tear in part of it. Maybe over here you've got, you know, another tear in part of it. Or, you know, maybe it's actually got a nice big hole in it. So, but you can kind of mask the hole, right? So if you kind of just fold up the dollar, you could still spin this. Like this still passes as an Active Directory. Like this is fine, right? But what we're going to talk about today is how we can basically make your Active Directory whole again. And we just use some magic tricks. So at the end of the talk, I will be explaining how to do some of these magic tricks. So I'm going to let that linger for a little while, though, while I share my screen, and we'll do, I guess, the boring half of the talk. Angela, can you see my slides okay now?
Yes, looks great.
Cool. Thank you. All right. Well, thanks everybody for showing up. I am Brandon Colley. You can reach out to me on Twitter, also in the Slack at TechBrandon. I've got it all minimized right now, so I'm looking forward to seeing everything you're telling me here in a little while. But I want to focus on being able to do one thing at a time, because as you can see down there, this is actually the first time I've given a talk. So a little bit more about me. I am 15 years experienced as a sysadmin, mostly in the education space. And I say that I'm fairly new to InfoSec, and I say that because I've really started to shift more into that realm over the last year, both professionally and also kind of after hours, learning a little bit more about stuff. So this talk is kind of a blend of some of those things. All right, so if that's who I am, we're going to talk about who you are. So my target audience today is students, blue teamers, some MSP providers, mostly just newbies. And you see, like me, right? So the newbies like me that have 15 years experience. Well, I still kind of view myself as a newbie in a lot of different ways. And as you'll see, some of the things that surprise me about this emulation, maybe they wouldn't have surprised you, or maybe they would. So anyway, I'm telling you who you are. So a few assumptions about what your Active Directory looks like today, or what you do today as a blue team. So you patch, right? So you patch your servers eventually, right? You scan, you check the vulnerabilities, and you sometimes even remediate one or two of them. And you log, you collect the logs and some of the logs. And so basically, if you've done that, then you're ready to hack yourself, right? So before you really kind of begin on this, and what we're really talking about right now is an adversary emulation. So you've heard that before, where purple team exercises and stuff like that. But from my point of view, I don't have a red team. I don't have a blue team. Heck, I don't even have a SOC, right? So if you're like me in a smaller institution or smaller business, you may be it. It may be you in a small team. So before you really get started in that, I say your stakeholders. So seek approval from the people who you need approval from. Don't just go in guns blazing and such. Do it right. Communicate to your teams unless you want to do some testing of a SOC or whatever, but communicate to the people that need to be communicated to. And then take notes. And so the two kind of notes that I've taken through this is a playbook, which is essentially just a raw list of the commands or the steps that I'm taking to perform some of the tests, and then also the output. You maybe also have some screenshots. You may have what your expected outcome was versus your actual outcome. But those are all going to be helpful, as well as just kind of normal note-taking that you may need to help with a write-up later. So if your stakeholders are expecting some sort of big write-up. Okay, so if we're going to be the adversary, first thing you got to do is you're going to choose your fighter, right? So my kids are super psyched with like these fighting games like Smash Bros right now. So I figured we'd do like a Smash Bros style choose your character here. And so some of the APTs that are known as Rocket Kitten and Deputy Dog and Voodoo Bear. So how do you pick your adversary? There is a wonderful website, and I'm going to keep talking about links and stuff. I've got a link slide at the end. I'll be happy to share all of that in Slack later on too. But basically, MITRE has a really good set of the APT groups. So they'll go through and explain what they are and what they do. And what they do is kind of how you pick the one that you want to be your fighter, right? So if you're in education space, you pick one that may target education space. If you're in the industrial technology, you may do that versus banking or medical. So that's going to help you kind of choose. Or you could do what I did and just choose the easy one based on the abilities. The APT3 was kind of one of the standard ones. MITRE already wrote out a lot of it and did a lot of the work for me. So that's where I started. The APT techniques, so once you get passed through your group, you're going to be met with something like this. So here you're going to see things like the password cracking, the local account creation, and some of the sticky keys persistence. So those are all things that we're going to do in our emulation. There were also some things listed in here that I just went ahead and did not plan to do. So like I said, I used the cheat code, right? So the up, down, AB select start cheat code for me in selecting my fighter was because of the field manual that was already built. This field manual is awesome. This is just a small part of it that talks about some of the discovery examples that are in that APT3 toolkit. So what you're basically looking at here is at least part of the playbook that I was talking about earlier. If you want to go a little bit further, or if you pick a different adversary where they don't have a pre-built field manual, the Atomic Red team, Red Canary has a GitHub. Again, I'll get you the link. This is just a quick excerpt from one of theirs. You can map those techniques to specific methods of performing those tests. So if you don't have it already written out for you and you don't know how to go about doing something like creating a new admin account on a Windows machine, this also goes through Mac and Linux and a couple other different tests. So it's going to walk you through methods that you can use to accomplish those. So that's if you want to go a little bit more than what I did here. All right, so we're almost done getting started. So some of the things that once you kind of know what you're going after, what some of your tests are going to be, I think it's important to set your goals and identify your outcomes or your expected outcomes, I guess, right? So what you think you might find and what your goals are may start to kind of shift a little bit as you start through this process. That's also why setting the scope is important. And I'm not talking about like a red team scope where you follow the rules. I'm talking more about follow your own rules. If you say that you're only going to run these commands, only run those commands. Don't deviate too much from that. I did not take my own advice, and you'll see I deviated a little bit because it's really easy to do. One kind of tip for that and that I tried to use was to set a list for next time. So you're anticipating today you're doing your first adversary emulated. Yeah, sorry, wow, I can't even spell adversary either. Emulation. So you'll do another one, right? So make a list for next time and then start your playbook. So what I did was kind of narrow in on 3 main areas. And so the rest of the talk is going to basically be some of the discovery, enumeration, reconnaissance type stuff, basically looking around. And then did a little bit of attempts at privilege escalation, another word that's hard to say, and some credential dumps. Then lastly, we did a little bit of persistence tests. So here you'll see the very first command. I mean, I think it's the very first one on the field manual. See who the local admin is, right? So here, what I did was got a laptop, connected it to the domain, logged in with a normal user account, just kind of assumed that I would be able to get user credentials some way, you know, phishing, guessing, spraying, any sort of methods to get just raw credentials. I did a lot of assume breach type stuff here. So I'm going to kind of flow into a little bit of the assume admin type pieces too. But as far as this first stuff, this is normal user behavior. So well, it's abnormal user behavior, but this is a normal user account. Sorry. So your normal user account, you can see who an admin is. You can see what domain groups there are. So there's the domain admin list. So now you know who the domain admins are. Here's also a local admin group that contains several individuals. You also know now who other accounts are that you can go after. And so now that you know who to go after, you can start querying those specific accounts. So you can get things inside here, such as what other group memberships they're members of, some of the password details. One of the earlier talks, and I'm sorry, I'm nervous and forgot his name, Lemon, Mr. Lemon from this morning was talking about password information, password not required being in here. Also something in the comments field. We'll talk more about that here in a little bit too. So then we shift and we can use these DS query. From here, you can you have to be an admin to install it, but you don't have to be an admin to run it. So if you happen to have it, or in this case, obviously just testing with it, I just ran an LDAP query to pull all of the user admins. So here's a snip of some of my coworkers' administrative accounts and what their names are and the descriptions of those. The second little one here is all of the server groups. So here you'll see the server admin group or specific administrators that might be on servers. So what I learned from the discovery portion was that your AD is public, or at least my AD was public. You can view whatever you want. You can do a full-blown dump of all the users, all the groups, all the computers of your Active Directory. Another takeaway was that description and comment field. So watch what you're putting in those. I know there have been multiple attacks that have been done or findings that have been found where people put passwords in there or are just way too descriptive inside of there, thinking that it's a private field. So so how can you catch some of this? So that's also what I'm trying to get through with this. It's, you know, it's fun to do, but what are we going to learn from it? So, you know, who installs RSAT, right? Like if outside an admin, if you have a normal user account that you get an alert on or a log on that someone installed RSAT, that could be an indicator of a compromise. And then also, what are you doing to monitor for this kind of reconnaissance? What's normal behavior considered in your institution? Are people even running command prompt? Like, do your users even need to be able to boot up the command prompt? Or do they do that on a regular basis for some reason? Also, who's running these net commands, right? Like, that's kind of a suspicious behavior, especially if it's more than one or two. So the second piece is the privilege escalation. And so this one actually failed for me, which was great. As a blue teamer, I was excited that we actually seemed to be doing something right. which unfortunately was basically just having antivirus. So in this case, we tried to escalate privileges using this power up tool. It let me download it. As soon as I attempted to run it, it got flagged, it got deleted from the system. So cool, next step, let's just shut it off, right? Okay, I'm an admin now. Like I can be an admin. Let's just pretend I'm an admin. Well, look at me, that's two things that I did right. I made it so you can't turn off the real-time protection, which is great until you realize that you can just run a registry edit to turn off real-time protection. Funny enough, though, my limited abilities, I couldn't get it to run locally still. So even after I turned it off, I believe it was turning itself back on after a log on or a log off. So I still couldn't run local scripts. And so this is where I started to get a little bit deviation. I ran some PS exec. I could get a remote shell now with an admin account, and but I wanted to do more, right? So nowhere in my playbook had anything about Metasploit, but right, okay. Maybe it's just a little bit. I mean, it's still using PS exec, just with interpreter shell. So from here, a couple little pieces that I had to navigate, but I was able to do a hash dump. So boom, all your local account hashes. I've got those now. So now I know that anyone with admin credentials essentially knows all local passwords, or at least could, with enough time. And then I went further down the rabbit hole because I wanted some domain stuff, right? Like we're not local users all the time. So I wanted to get some domain stuff. So with the interpreter shell, booted up Mimikatz, ran a credential dump, and went ahead and logged in a couple times with a couple different domain accounts, and was able to pull some hashes from the memory of that system. So now not only do I have local credentials, I may have some domain credentials. I may have my own domain credential here. Okay, this one, I don't think it was on the field manual, but it was definitely something that was part of what I wanted to do. Someone talked about Kerber roasting earlier too, and people were like, what's Kerber roasting? And I'm not going to explain it because I don't know exactly. I just know that SPNs kind of are important and kind of suck right now because I ran this. This is an in-packet thing right from a Kali machine, get user SPN. I've got username, password. Those are non-admin credentials, just any domain. I'm not even attacking a workstation right now. And I dumped all of the SPNs from my domain, including the hashes. And what sucks is that top one is literally the domain administrator account. So that shit, right? I can say that now. We decided that. All right, so I kind of went through this as I went. So what did I learn? AV blocked some stuff. I did a good job on setting up some group policies that prevent or require administrative credentials to do remote sessions. It blocked just normal accounts from being able to do certain things. But I did get all those hashes. So the third piece of the puzzle is the persistence. Some of the fun persistence stuff is just basically 2 lines of code that create a new account and then add that account to the admin group. So, I mean, you don't need a shell to do this. You just write a quick script to do this. And then this third one is just showing that it got put in the admins group. To take that a step further, let's go ahead and schedule it. So we're going to create a scheduled task. Here I'm calling calculator, but you can easily replace that with a batch file or a PowerShell script. Run in a system every time someone logs in, and you now have a backdoor account. Even more fun is sticky keys. So this was new to me. So if it's not new to you and you think I'm stupid because I have 15 years experience and I didn't know I could do this, I'm sorry, but I think it's cool. So you can redirect the sticky keys executable to the command prompt. And when you do that, you have a command prompt that runs as system. So going to try to do this, so I hope I don't screw this up too much. I could not embed this video, so here's my plug, here's my Twitter, here's everyone I've talked to. This is what it looks like. So on a log on screen, before you've logged in whatsoever, you hit the shift key a couple times, and boom, now you have a shell. So that's what that looks like. So what did we learn through persistence? So a lot of this is behavioral and indicators of compromise is what we're talking about now, right? So we don't get alerts on local admin creation, or maybe we should, right? Same with scheduled tasks. Why do end users need to do that thing? Sticky keys did alert in Windows Defender, but it didn't do anything. It didn't stop it. It just said, hey, there's suspicious behavior. So if you're not monitoring for those sort of things and you're not acting on those sort of things, you may be missing out. And perhaps the biggest takeaway from everything is limit your local admin. So local admin means a lot, especially when you start looking at being an admin on multiple machines. Once you go from being a normal user to an admin on that machine happens to be an admin on all of the machines or a small group of the machines. Your scope widens very quickly. And as a red teamer, you could get in very quickly. So that's kind of been my big takeaway from what I had done. So your takeaways are you can do it. And so do what I did, like just literally follow it. If you're super interested, ping me and I'll literally give you everything that I ran. And if you think that this is like too low level for you, this is too noob, then just try to test your defense, right? So you have an EDR solution, you have a SOC, we got all the logs, well then test those things, right? If you haven't already, and maybe you have already. And so if you have, then poke deeper in there. So even the APT3 field manual that I went off of even still had file share enumeration stuff in there that we didn't do. UAC bypass was in there. Golden ticket, pass the hash, lateral movement was something that we didn't even touch on. So there's a huge group of things that you can do. So tailor it to what you know you already have in your environment and just try it out. So if you haven't already. All right, and here are all my links. I'm going to take a quick drink, let you look at them. I'm going to, I will copy those and throw them in Slack. Or if you miss it or need them later, ping me and I'll get that for you. So the last part of the talk. All right, so I'm going to stop share. Stop that from continuing to do the magic thing because that's really annoying. Bear with me for 1 minute. And Angela, if you're still there, can you help me with some of this stuff in a little bit?
I can.
Awesome. Give me a second. All right, so I wanted to prevent that scrunch when people touch their microphones and stuff. All right, so first, I guess, before I say anything else, if you don't want to learn how magic tricks are done, if you like to, live in a world where magic exists, go watch the other talk for a little while, because I'm sorry, I'm breaking magician's code here, but there's your warning, right? Okay, so the dollar bill trick, right? I didn't actually rip everything. I ripped some stuff. So I did rip these two corners. I did not actually rip the whole face off, obviously. So what you do in this sort of trick, which I think is a really powerful trick, you essentially fold this piece down and you'll fold it toward yourself. Here I'm folding it toward you. And then you just kind of pretend to rip it, right? And you can make that sound so it sounds like you're gonna rip it. I like to pretend that I eat it, or you can throw it away or whatever. The second piece of that trick to kind of hide it, where you can rotate it so the audience won't see that flap right there, is how you can fold up those sides. And then you can say, yeah, you could still spend it. Like you don't have to have George Washington's face to spend money. And so that lets you kind of show the entirety of the dollar. Then the last piece, you can kind of fold it in half again. And there you can show that it's fully gone. And it also gives you two little handles to kind of hold on to the edges. So when you pop it and you pop it fast and hard, you can't see the edges on there. So that's basically that dollar bill magic trick. You do unfortunately have a dollar that has a small rip or hole in it. But again, you can still spend that money. So, all right. Angela, I'm going to have you help me with a couple card magic tricks.
Okay.
All right, so this first one, I'm just gonna have you tell me when you want me to stop. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna kind of dribble through the cards like that.
Okay.
And you just, while I'm doing that, just tell me to stop whenever you want.
Stop.
Okay, so right there, we've got two, it's hard to see over the Zoom, I think. But basically what we've got is two decks. There you go. Told me where to stop. You stopped right here in the middle of the deck. So you could have picked any card you wanted, but this is your card.
Okay.
We'll go ahead and we'll replace it back in the middle of the deck. And we're going to see if we can get the deck to just tell us in a certain way what your card is, see if it stands out in any way. Now, all of these cards look about the same, except for that one. That one's different. So your card, the 10 of clubs. All right. Again, if you don't want to know magic tricks, here's a look at that. There's two 10s, two different colors. Your setup on this, what you're doing is basically forcing someone to pick the card you want them to pick. So this is called a card force. So you get the red card on the bottom. That way no one can see it. You can actually show most of the deck if you want to. And you could even show the faces of the deck here too, because because you're going to show them that one, you may not show them that top card. But the card that you pick is going to be on the top. That's the card that I want you to force to pick. And there's a couple different ways to do this, but what I did was just called a crisscross force. And from there, you can tell me to stop wherever you want in the middle of the deck. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of swing that one down and put that one on top sideways, just like you would cut the cards. However, the card you actually cut to is right here. The card on the top of the deck is the one that's right here.
Okay.
So that's an easy way that you could force a card. And then from there, it's just, you just complete the cut and you've got your card.
That's a good one.
Thank you. All right, we got a couple more. I think I've still got some time. I got like 10 minutes. Cool. All right, so this one, what we're going to do is called a card control. So just reach out your finger and touch one of the cards. Or you can just tell me where you want to stop.
Right there, where your thumb is now. Yeah, okay, great.
This one, right here. Okay, so I'm showing you and showing me at the same time. Not that it matters. All right, so this is your card. We're going to put it here in the middle of the deck. And then we're going to give the deck a couple cuts. We could even shuffle the deck. And I'm hoping I didn't mess this one up already. But, so all these, we already saw those are the same. We already also kind of saw that, they're not all the same card. Sorry, some of the lighting here kind of stinks. But what I'm thinking we can do with this one again is we can probably make it stand out the same way we made the other one stand out, except for not red. Card that is face down.
Hey.
So this was called a card control. I did the exact same sort of trick. On this one, you select your card. You do actually push it into the middle of the deck. I can show you from the reverse side. This is really difficult to show people what we're doing. But what you do is you push down on the card, and when you bring it in, you kind of create this break. Here, I'm going to pin myself to watch myself real fast. There. So you're pushing it in and creating this break in between the two cards, or the two packets, and then you grab about half of this packet, and you can pull that down, and then you grab the other half, and you pull that up. And then what you've done is you've kept that card on the top.
Okay.
And then once you have it on top, you can do pretty much whatever you want with it. For this one, I did kind of this weird turn thing. And I was doing that because I wanted the top card here to be in the palm of my hand. And so when I pull this up and flip it, that you kind of saw, I'm actually keeping that one face up. Oh,
Okay. Yeah.
And all of the rest of them face down. And then I just cut it so it was in the center of the deck.
That's cool.
All right, I promised pancake deck as my grand finale. All right, same sort of thing. Actually, why don't you tell me a card?
Tell you a card.
Yeah, what card do you want?
2 of spades.
All right, 2 of spades. So this time we're going to do the same sort of thing that we just did. I'm going to push it in the middle of the deck. Mix them up. I can even mix them up more this way. And your 2 of spades is what, oh, okay, so, well, I thought I had that one on top, but we'll put the 9, it was a 9 of clubs. Put the 9 of clubs in between my pancakes, and we'll see if we can't make it turn into the 2 of spades. Oh, okay, so now I've got the 9 of clubs. 2 of spades was in the pancake.
Nice. It only works if you have pancakes, right?
It only works with pancakes. It's actually, I've heard it called the pancake before because you give the card to someone and you just put it in their hand and then you just hold it like this, like you tell them to pancake the card. So it was legitimately called a pancake trick.
That's great.
But this trick uses something called a double lift. So we did the same sort of thing previously where we kind of hid the card in the middle or pretended to hide the card in the middle. But to do a double lift, all you're doing is actually taking the 2 top cards and you're turning them over and pretending they're 1 card. And there's a couple different ways that you can do that. So one way is you can kind of push the cards, and this is way exaggerated, but you kind of push the cards so they're really bezeled like that, so it's easier to grab 2 from the back. And so you could grab the 2 from the back and do it like that. The other way you could do it is you can kind of grab them from this. Oh, I'm sorry, there's my 10-minute warning. Grab them from the side where you can almost kind of count the cards here with your finger if you've got them slightly moved a little bit. But anyway, that's I've got a link, I think, for how to do a double lift, a couple different ways to do it. But that's the whole idea, is you just kind of show in one direction and then you have a different card there. So that's your double lift. I've got a couple little like spins and tricks and stuff, but I'm interested in doing some Q&A, so I could take a little drink here too. So sorry, I should have done this first. If you've got any for me, Angela, otherwise I'll start looking through here.
Yeah, obviously, like I wasn't able to look while we were doing magic, but all the responses from the first half were like really good. I saw someone say that a previous Darknet Diaries episode refers to some of the same steps. So that's really great. A lot of encouragement and just like everybody really enjoyed the beginning. Let's see.
I see. I'll go backwards here real quick. I saw Randy asked where I learned magic tricks. So I've got a couple links. There's a book. I think The Royal Road to Card Magic is a pretty good one that gets you some of the foundation type things. But really, the first things I found was Chris Ramsey on YouTube does some pretty cool magic tricks, and he'll kind of code them in there and say, this is easy. This one's anybody can do this, or self-working are other things that make it really easy to learn some of that. Alex Pandrea is another one. So a lot of YouTube really is kind of where I learned some of that stuff.
Great. I know some, I've definitely heard of like companies bringing in magicians, but I don't think they ever necessarily show you how to do the trick.
That's true.
That was cool. And Randy also mentions that, right? There's like professional magicians who come in and do social engineering on physical pen test engagement, which is kind of cool to help training.
Yeah, I think the mind is very similar, which kind of, it's actually funny. So magic was kind of my thing before like security was really. I mean, so I kind of went through and I bought a bunch of magic books and I read like half of one, and then I got tired of it, and then I started getting more into like the mental side of it, and then that kind of the social engineering kind of, and then that kind of turned into some of the security type stuff. So I think it all kind of definitely is tied together.
Definitely. Appreciation for how you did your video with the technical demo there, and less ways to screw it up that way. So a lot of praise for that. I appreciated that you put who your audience was for, but then further on you kind of said, if you think this is too noob, go try this, right? Which I think is important. Definitely, right? Like it's never you're never too advanced to like go back to the basics. And
yeah, I think that kind of, I mean, so it wouldn't be a complete conference if nobody said imposter syndrome, right? It's just that, okay, I did it, but it's little piddly stupid stuff. Like nobody wants to learn this. So it's really cool to see that people do. And then you throw those disclaimers in where, you're sitting with the bigwigs in here doing talk about crazy stuff over in the other channel. And so, yeah, he knows all this stuff, but not everybody does. So it's really cool to be able to be here.
I think you did a great job. If anyone else has any other questions, Brandon, if you'd like to hang out in the chat, I'm sure everyone would appreciate it.
Yep, I will scroll through all the chat and I'll get back to anybody that has any questions, and I appreciate it. Thank you for Angela for your my co-host.
For sure. I look forward to seeing many more presentations from you, Brandon. You did a great job.
Thank you. I appreciate it, guys. Take care.